Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. It's actually looking a bit more bright today, more like spring than winter. It's wonderful. How's the weather where you are? I was looking at Chicago weather and it's really dark when people are getting up to go to work. Oh, I feel for you because it's so cold. We don't get that cold in Brisbane. Anyhow, if you're here, welcome, and my name's Linda. I'm your trauma recovery coach, and if you're here for the replay, let's do a hashtag replay today. Feel welcome to put questions in, comments, and if you're here and you're new, just look up above at the link for eCam. You need to just click on that link so that I can see your name when you comment. Facebook has made it a new rule for apps because of all the disaster they had with apps that weren't very good in the months gone by. eCam is quite okay. We've had no problems with it at all, but they just do this in groups. Now, today I want to talk to you some more about boundaries. And they are really important, especially when we're going through things like coming out of relationships, when we're starting to rebuild our life, and we need to know they're an essential part of complex PTSD when we need to know, when we're learning how to reparent ourselves, and they also help us identify core ingredients within ourselves, or they help us recognize what we do and don't want in our life. Okay, so let's just grab the list today. Okay, so it's 7 essentials for boundaries, and I just want to hang on. And the reason why they're essential is because they're personal for us. Okay, so it's not about other people, it's about us and what's healthy for our lives. So what are the 7 essentials that we need to look at when we're putting boundaries into place and when we're beginning to recognize that we actually need boundaries? So the first one is values, and values are what we love and what we assign importance to. So when we look at values, we're going to ask ourselves the question, what am I valuing, and is it temporary or permanent? So when you're looking at values in the perspective of relationships, you're going to sit down and you go, does this person's opinion matter from the perspective of my values? And values, look at values as something that is ongoing, long-lasting, okay? So opinions, I can't, this quote just ran through my head and I'm like, no, we can't say that. Opinions are common, okay? And so they come and they go. So they're not long-lasting, so they're not something we should value or place any value in. Have you ever thought about it like that? When we think about it like that, we go, that's not a value I need to be worried about. So we can let things go, no, that's not what I value. Let it go. Because it's not permanent. All right, next thing we need to look at is limits. Now, limits are often the things that, if we talk about boundaries, we think, yes, I've got to learn how to say no to people. And that's true, but really, if you look at that statement, you can see that limits aren't something we can impose on other people. Because we can't ever change anybody else. There's something that we put into place in our lives. We say, we're going to draw a line in the sand when I've reached my limit, and then we have to put in place self-control. So if I say I'm finding it really, really hard to say no, then I have to look within myself and say, well, why am I finding it hard to say no? Why aren't I executing the self-discipline to say no? It's a good question. So learning to say no is important, but it's more about the self-discipline within ourselves to stay focused on where we need to be and what we value. Okay, So the other side of limits, and now I found this really, really interesting, is self-control without repression. Now, the first thing, of course, that I thought of is chocolate cake. How do we have self-control without repression? Well, self-control is saying no to the second piece of chocolate cake, because let's face it, we're not going to say no to the first piece. Well, I do now because I'm on a ketogenic way of eating, but you get what I mean. And so that's self-control, but there's no repression. It's not, I'm going to give myself a really hard time just because I thought about having another piece of cake or the first one. I'm not going to give myself a hard time because I'm thinking about a new job, but I'm going to have the self-control to recognize that that's not something I value, is going about changing my whole entire life for a new job. See the difference? And when we put the self-control into place, the limit automatically, the boundary really, automatically comes out and we go, yeah, no, on with the next thing. Now, our talents. Think about things that you love to be good at or you'd love to do, and then recognise where fear is stopping you from stepping out. And believe me, it's like the onion. It's layer upon layer upon layer. And as we recognise the fear and we strip it away by doing, remember in complex PTSD, we have to have the experience in order that our neurology and biology gets the message that we're safe to step out, then we grow into even more so what we want to do. So the first time I ever did one of these Facebook Lives, I just, I really wanted to crawl under the desk, die of heart failure. The fear was crushing, but each time I stepped out, it became less and less so. And it was the same when I got up in church and addressed, I did a 10-minute pocket preaching. I thought I'd die, the anxiety, the perspiration's pouring down me. But in the end, the more I got up, the more I was able to conquer the fear, all right? And people who've never had anxiety do not understand the depths of anxiety, okay? People would say to me, the fear, getting up in front of people, the fear is, it's normal, we've all got it. Well, let me tell you, when you've got anxiety-induced fear, it's worse than people who just experience a natural fear of standing up, okay? But the good news is we can conquer it. Now, so the question then becomes, what's something you'd like to do where fear is holding you back? Okay, so we want to push through that. We actually want to push through and create a broader boundary, not keep us locked inside. So we have to own our thoughts, okay, and we do that by examining them, and where we can grow in knowledge and grow our mind, broaden our mind. That reminds me of sayings from children. Broaden your mind. When you broaden your mind, it also gives you information around where you want to have boundaries and what you're going to value from here on in as well. So it's a good thing. So think of all the videos you watch, how much you learn, and how much it broadens your mind, and it gives you language around what's happening for you as well. So clarified distorted thinking. Now this comes up in relationships all the time, okay? And we can feel pretty sensitive and pretty vulnerable around this area because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. So the best thing you can do is sit down and have honest conversations with people. Now, if the other person isn't hearing you, then you're not having an honest two-way conversation. So you're not going to get any clarity, all right? But if you have a relationship, whether it's a partner or like with me, with my children, adult children, we can sit down and have a conversation about where there's miscommunication between us. So you want to, put your values into place there too. Is this person going to be around for a long time or aren't they? And of course with my kids they are. So we put the effort in, but works both ways. Okay. So our desires, the desires of our heart and where we're going in the future spring from knowing who I am. And we often go through life, a lot of people go through life not being able to answer the question, who am I? And when we've come through trauma, it's something that we unpack along the way. So I don't want you to be afraid that it'll never happen. It does happen, okay? Love is one of the things that one of the essential ingredients in boundaries that can often keep us going back to toxic relationships. So you need your self-discipline, self-control, definitely in this equation. But the love in boundaries, the question we need to ask ourselves is, have I learnt to receive and give love? We often can give a lot of love, but we haven't learnt to receive it yet. And that is part of being vulnerable and also being aware of it being a balanced equation, okay? Now, if you want to read more about this, expanding our mind with knowledge, I want you to go grab this book, okay? It's been an international bestseller for a lot of years. Let's see. Okay, and it will impact you in a way that will bring you out of frustration. I know when I first found this book, I don't know how many years ago now, but quite a lot, I was very frustrated because I had tried to change the relationship that I was in. I'd tried everything I knew, and then I came across this book, and it gave me a lot of peace within myself, and it equipped me with tools that I wasn't taught as a child. So remember, when we come out of childhood after trauma, then there's still a lot of information that we need to learn, and this book continues to equip me no matter what. All right, so there's your essentials for boundaries today. If you have any questions or comments, please feel welcome to comment down below, and I will get back to you ASAP. Thanks for joining in today, and if you're here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button to know when the new videos are released. Bye for now.